The fact that Christopher Nolan even thought it was okay to make that movie says so much. So much about his... I mean, I guess the only good thing that's come out of this stupid movie being made... By the way, I really want to see Cillian Murphy's eyes. I would do anything to watch that man for 3 hours, but I can't support this movie. And maybe this is because I was a history major and I took history of the American Southwest. And one of the things that was so disturbing that I learned about, among many, was the Trinity stuff that I had never heard about. And only when I took a class specifically about the Southwest was I told about how much Native Americans and all of the locals in New Mexico, how... Oh, okay, just look at this. Well, actually, but first, before we even get into that, finally, they are being called out for making Barbenheimer a thing. I really want to know who is behind that brilliant but so offensive campaign strategy to get people to watch both movies. I mean, Barbie would have done phenomenal on her own, right? Barbie is crushing it at the movie theater. And I believe that this stupid movie is only doing well because of her, right? Because so many women probably would not have gone and watched this movie. And because they got, put together as Barbenheimer, they were like, yeah, let's watch both. Why not? It's a thing. Everyone wanted to be a part of this thing of them going together. So this movie that has like 2 women in it who have like, I don't even know, I forget what it's like 6 minutes or something ridiculous of speaking time, got lumped in with this movie. These 2 should never be lumped together. So the success of this one is riding on the coattails of this one, of course. But the fact that they so Japan, finally the Warner Brothers or whatever is apologizing for how insensitive it is to loop this Barbie with one of the biggest human rights violations in history. Like, they're not even sure when they're gonna release Oppenheimer, because they're just like, can you imagine being Japanese and this movie coming out in your country? A movie about the hard life, the hard decisions of a white man. Like something that killed up to 220,000 people instantly in the most horrific way. And the whole movie is about this loser who, oh God. The way that film erases women, it erases the victims of his decision and his work. It is classic cishet white man main character energy that we are so tired of. And yet it did great at the box office, a lot because of Barbie. And because Christopher Nolan has this reputation of being just this amazing filmmaker. Yeah, he's an amazing filmmaker, but he's a terrible writer and a terrible storyteller when it comes to making his characters, fleshing them out. He only fleshes out male characters. He does not do that for anyone else. Visually, I love watching his movies. Again, I'm going to do one on Inception soon because I was so mad, but I got to go watch the whole thing again, so it's going to take me a while, y'all. This stuff is time consuming and I don't get paid for it, really. Like $2 maybe I'll make off a video about this. But now I want to get into the bigger issue. And I saw this going around on Twitter a couple weeks ago from a native New Mexican who was like, what? This, why? And I meant to do a video back then, but now I'm going to do it here. So by the way, this is one of my mutuals and I learned so much from her. And I love you. I love her. Go follow her. And I did not know this. I did not know that they were doing tests on reservations all over the country. But what I learned from just what the little bit of knowledge I have about this is that, yeah, they were testing the nuclear atomic crap in Nevada and New Mexico. I lived in New Mexico for most of my 20s, y'all. I love that state so much. I was up in Taos, but I even went to Los Alamos. That's when I was dating that abusive man. I almost had to get my tonsils removed because this man was stressing me out so much. I went to the museum, and even in the museum, they're still like, well, we're not really sure if we should have dropped the bomb. No, you should not have. They literally did it because of white supremacy and American imperialism and revenge. That's it. They didn't need to drop those bombs. They chose to do it because the United States government wanted to be the world leader. They wanted everyone afraid. They wanted to be the police of the world. And if you look at our police Y'all really don't want us policing the world. Look what they do to their own constituents, especially the Black community. Anyway, if you want to actually learn more about this, which is a much better story, which should have been made into a movie, but the US government would definitely not be okay with that, is about the Trinity test. Man, I just did a deep dive into it and I don't have time to go into everything. This is like literally like the easiest read. History Channel even talks about it. The first victims of the Manhattan Project and all this crap, the Trinity tests. And the worst part is they didn't even warn the people. So look at this. Nearly 500,000 people lived there or within 150 miles of this thing. It was not an isolated area. They did it at 5:30 in the morning. So they also cite this article from Vice. This one, it's a really good read. You should go back. Someone wrote it back in like 2016 about how the victims of this bomb have still not been compensated. Over 70 years later, they're still not compensated. The radioactive debris fell from the sky, killing cattle, poisoning food and water, and generations of residents have suffered from cancer and other illnesses. And the government refuses to take responsibility because if they took responsibility, they'd basically be admitting guilt. We know how they do with guilt or, admitting guilt. I mean, just look at the U.S. government's approach to reparations. I swear, they're never going to admit anything. The U.S. government does not take accountability most of the time. And they certainly don't financially compensate all the people they've harmed. And it's actually even been argued that the bombs were actually worse in New Mexico because of the way they were dropped, the temperature, because it being so flat. I don't know, something about the caps. You can look it up yourself. Apparently, the Nevada downwinders have been compensated for, but the New Mexico ones never have. So one of the accounts in the Vice article, it's also in this History Channel one, is they interviewed this one woman who was a little girl when it happened at like a summer camp, and how they thought they were rubbing it on their faces, like they were playing with it like it was snow. Apparently there was a huge spike in infant deaths, which were completely ignored. And this is the most insidious. This is just evil. At the time, scientists understood that exposure to nuclear radiation could lead to tumors, cancers, and other negative health effects. In fact, 5 days after the Trinity test, Warren dude told the Manhattan Project leader, nuclear fallout from the test, it's a very serious hazard over a 2,700 square mile area downwind of the Trinity, right? Despite knowing that, wrote this nonsense. Like, just gaslit all these people. Oh, wait, the health and safety of everyone's biggest concern without engagement. Like, I could go on and on, y'all. But when I first heard that Oppenheimer was coming out, I was like, what? Are y'all really going to humanize the people and one particular man who made something that literally is going to change the world for the worse, kill hundreds of thousands of people, and it being rooted in American imperialism and white supremacy and capitalism and all, like, oh God. And now we're all supposed to, and then you get like one of the best actors of all time with like eyes that you just can't not look in, get him to play this role. And now we're like humanize. I am so tired of the villains being the main character and us having sympathy for God. I want all stories being, I want the people on the receiving end of all of this violence. I want to hear their stories. I'm so tired of, God, the POV of people who do not care about anyone but themselves. I'm so tired of, aren't y'all tired of this? So, stop paying to see these movies. Please support women directors, Black directors and writers, and just filmmakers of all the people who are left out or trivialized or used. Our trauma is used to make money for white men. God, they just like, Christopher Nolan can eat a dick as far as I'm concerned. I'm sure like he's a brilliant genius, but you know what? There's so many women and Black, Indigenous, and other people of color and trans people. And there's so many people who are brilliant who never get a shot in Hollywood. Never. And this man just make whatever he want. Even a whole biopic about the dude who did something. You know what I mean, y'all? Like,